Hey guys, and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slurve video over here on YouTube. It is Thursday, August 6, 2020. This is No Huddle Fantasy Sports, and of course we are talking about the MLB main slate DFS action over on FanDuel. This information does apply to DraftKings if you're playing over on DraftKings, but keep in mind, we're talking about a 5-game slate on FanDuel starting at 7 o'clock. Over on DraftKings, I believe it starts an hour earlier, their main slate at 6 o'clock. A lot of this information applies to both DraftKings and FanDuel, but specifically, we're going to be exploring FanDuel pricing here. We're talking about my favorite pitchers, some of my favorite one-off bats, and of course, the stacks of the night. But it is, as I mentioned, a 5-game small slate. So don't go crazy tonight. Keep it simple, and hopefully we can do better than we did last night. Last night was a bit disappointing. A lot of the main stacks we mentioned, a lot of the teams that were projected in general in Vegas to score a lot of runs did not. It was a slow night across the board. I can tell you, in general, some of the bats that I took did not do very well, and that's completely honest with you. The pitching did well. We did well selecting our pitchers, but the stacks of Colorado did not pan out. The stacks of Chicago did not pan out. And of course, the main stack of Minnesota didn't pan out. I was also hoping that at night, the Los Angeles Angels, a late night hammer stack I've been playing the last couple of nights, would turn out. They did score runs, but it was all through one guy, Mike Trout, the double home run. So not a great night last night, so let's turn it around here. We're going to start with this main slate, 7 o'clock slate over on FanDuel, talking Tyler Chatwood as our number one pitcher. Very, very simple way to look at this. If you're playing cash games, there's very, very few places to go other than Tyler Chatwood. He will be, in terms of ownership, very, very high. So if you're playing tournaments and you want to get different, Tyler Chatwood's probably not the way to go. $9,600 for Chicago, playing in Kansas City against the Royals. Has pitched really well, and it's as simple as that. 12-plus innings, scored 63 FanDuel points in his last outing. He's getting the W's, he's getting quality starts, he's giving up very few runs, and he's actually putting out a number of strikeouts. He's not a guy that typically reaches that 10 per 9 strikeout rate, but he's certainly doing it right now. So maybe that's something to change for him. Maybe he'll get that strikeout rate up. Regardless, he's in a really good situation here. Chicago's a heavy favorite, projected to win this game. Kansas City is a team that just does not have a lot of good bats, especially power bats. Kansas City's ballpark is a pitcher-friendly park, so all things are aligning outside of being an away pitcher are lining up good here for Tyler Chatwood. There's no glaring weaknesses in his game. He limits hard contact, fly ball rate of like 13%, so super low. Home run per 9 for his career is under 1, 20 to 25% K rate, so a very solid K rate. He's showing even bigger numbers than that right now in terms of Ks, and he does pitch better on the road. Of course, he's a Chicago pitcher, so that naturally makes sense. Tyler Chatwood is the number one guy easily here. Most expensive guy, still only $9,600. Shouldn't have an issue fitting stacks and other players, but in general, keep him in mind, especially in cash games. But in tournaments, you might have to get different if you want to differentiate. Zach Gallen is number 2 here. He's $8,200. I am considering him, but it is completely based upon what the Houston lineup is. They don't have very many left-handers, but they certainly have some good left-handers. Specifically, Michael Brantley should be hitting middle of that order. I expect him fully to play tonight, but this is the 4th game, Houston in Arizona. That could mean some lineup changes, hopefully for the better in terms of Arizona and Zach Gallen. Hopefully we see less of a potent offense in Houston. They've been slow out of the gate, the Houston Astros, but they have turned it up a little bit in Arizona, so that does make Gallen a little risky here, but he does save you a little bit of money, $1,400 specifically off the top guy on this slate. I mentioned he's very risky, but he does have potential. He's been a really, really solid young pitcher. Began his career in Miami. Last season, pitched in 15 games, 80 innings, had a K rate over 10, 287 WOBA, pitches better at home in Arizona, where he takes his WOBA from 311 on the road down to 268, xFIP floating right around 4. So this guy's a solid pitcher. You can see his game log from this year, 10 innings so far, put up 43, a 9 strikeout game. He can strike out people. The Houston Astros do offer a lot of right-handed bats. They don't strike out a lot, unfortunately. But again, pay attention to that Houston lineup. Gallen could easily become my favorite guy, my number one guy on the slate, depending on what that Houston lineup is. It's only 10:30 on the East Coast right now, so lineups could obviously change. They haven't come out yet, and they could change from what they are normally, especially in these third or fourth game series. Of course, if you're looking to save money, which I don't think you have to on this slate, but if you are trying to be different and save money, I have a little bit of interest in Brad Keller here pitching for Kansas City against the Chicago Cubs. So the other side of the Chatwood play here, it's going to be difficult to get the W here, which is very, very important on FanDuel, but I do like him. I do have interest in him. His price tag is the number one reason why at only $6,400. Pitching for Kansas City in Kansas City. Mentioned it's a pitcher's ballpark. The Chicago Cubs on paper are a dangerous team, but the reality is, out of the gate so far for 2020, Rizzo, Bryant, a lot of those players have struggled. A lot of their name brand bats just have not been hitting. And so for that reason, I am interested a little bit in Brad Keller here. Mentioned money saver, only $6,400, can pretty much fit any bat you want. His K per 9, there's no peripherals that really stand out. His K per 9 is not over the top. He pitched well last year. He had a 3.08 ERA, went 9-6 in 140 innings for Kansas City. Obviously pitches much better in home games, 279 WOBA versus 325 on the road. His strikeouts actually go up at home. His xFIP comes way down. Regardless of where he's pitching, he's always been a guy that keeps the ball in the ballpark, doesn't give up a lot of home runs, low fly ball rate of 28-29%, and he limits hard contact. Again, all good things here. If you scroll back to last year, he even had a solid run here of 6, 7, 8 innings, going deep into games, getting 5, 6, 7 strikeouts time and time again, getting the W's. The tricky part here is, this is his first start of the season. How far will he go in the game? Are they going to limit him in pitches? I haven't been able to find that information out yet. And B, will he get the win? Both big ifs here, and that could limit his upside. But again, if you're looking to save money, be different, $6,400. And I'm not sure what he is on DraftKings, but he could be a solid number 2 pitcher to help you save some money. So jumping into the stacks of the night, which teams are we looking to stack bats with? A couple of teams here I want to mention: Chicago White Sox, the Atlanta Braves, surprisingly the Miami Marlins, and there's a couple other teams I'll mention towards the end there, but those are my top 3 stacks of the night, starting out with the Chicago White Sox, pitching at home against Milwaukee. Hitting at home, playing at home against Milwaukee. The pitcher is Josh Leblanc for Milwaukee. There's not a lot of information on this guy. Last 2 years pitching at KBO. Before that, had very limited experience in the MLB, but he's not necessarily a young guy. He's a right-hander. Teams like the Pirates in his most recent outing, you can check it out here, they were even able, a team like the Pirates that basically has no one on that team has been able to put up some runs against him. So far this year, 4.91 ERA, 3.2 innings in his last outing, gave up a lot of walks, a lot of hits, 6 total in just 3+ innings. Did strike out a lot and gave up 2 runs. But nonetheless, I still really like the White Sox here. You can stack them a bunch of different ways. The good thing is Chicago is top 5 in almost every category in 2020 versus right-handed bats. They play well at home. The Chicago White Sox home ballpark is a hitter-friendly ballpark, especially late in the season when the temperature starts to rise. They have a 341 WOBA. Yes, it is limited stats so far in 2020, but a 341 WOBA, a 126 WRC plus, and either 160 or 180 ISO against right-handed bats. So they are hitting right-handed bats very, very well. The guy I would start to stack out easily with is Moncada, having a great season so far. 326 batting average, 2 home runs. He's a switch hitter, hitting number 2 typically. I do like Mazzara. He's hitting lower in the lineup, a new guy from Texas, had a decent career so far in Texas. Hopefully he bumps up as a left-hander, but you can go further than that. I mean, Grandal, catcher, switch-hitting catcher, played many years for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I like him. I don't think you're going to have Encarnacion tonight, but even beyond that, if you check out their lineup, typically Lewis Robert leading off. You have Abreu, of course. If you want to find another first baseman, he's a great option. Just a number of guys you can go with that Chicago White Sox lineup. I'll go left, I'll go right. It doesn't matter. You don't necessarily have to take left-handed or switch hitting bats. You can go with both the left and the right here against Leblanc, and I do trust the Chicago White Sox tonight, hoping they aren't the number 1 in stack. Beyond that, the second team I mentioned here is, of course, the Atlanta Braves playing at home. We're talking about a lot of at-home stacks here. I don't necessarily like that for bats, but Atlanta is a good ballpark, and the Atlanta Braves, again, are a good team in terms of power, left-handed power. They are pitching against the Toronto Blue Jays and Nate Pearson, another young guy This guy is actually a highly touted prospect. I believe he was the #1 prospect in the Blue Jays organization in terms of pitching. He's a top 10 MLB prospect. So this kid does pitch well in the minor leagues, but in general hasn't done much this year. If we scroll over here, pitched earlier this season against Washington, 5 strikeouts, no earned. He actually had a decent outing, 5 innings, 5 strikeouts. But still, I don't trust him. Against Washington is whatever. They lost Rendon. Now they're going up against Freddie Freeman and company. I believe this is based purely more so on the actual offense than it is the pitcher they're facing. Hopefully they can take advantage of a young guy. You're going to be missing a couple guys here. But Markakis, if I can find his name here, Inciarte, these guys might be in the lineup tonight, considering they're a decent, over their career, decent left-handed at-bats. Albies is on the injured list. Matt Adams is now injured. A couple of guys will be sitting out, which isn't the best thing in the world. But you have a ton of options here. You have Swanson, who's been playing really, really well at top of that lineup. If Camargo's in the lineup, a switch hitter. You have Azuna. I'd take left. I would take right. I think they're going to get to this young pitcher pretty early in Atlanta. Guy that's going to struggle. We don't have many options here. Atlanta Braves are my second favorite stack of the night. This one's going to come off a little weird. Wouldn't think I would say it. Miami Marlins are either 5-1 or 6-1. Yes, they've played a limited number of games. They've had a lot of rest, but they are winning games even against bad teams. They face the Baltimore Orioles tonight at home, and they face one of my favorite pitchers to target, which is Wade Leblanc. Wade Leblanc is just, to be perfectly honest with you, he is not a good pitcher. You can see his stats so far this year: 4.09 ERA, 7 strikeouts, so far 11 innings pitched. I guess you can say okay. Gave up 4 runs in Boston the first start of the year, and Boston has not been playing well. But he's just a guy. I'll just read off some of his stats from 2019. This guy had a 4.68 xFIP to left-handers, 5.21 to right-handers, so he's not even eliminating or neutralizing left-handers. He is a left-handed pitcher, of course, so we like right-handed bats, but you can go both ways here. Not a guy that strikes out a lot of people. 15% strikeout rate to right-handers, 1.84 home run per 9, which is really high to right-handers. 2.86 home run per 9 to left-handers. He's given up long balls to both left and right-handers. So I like Miami. It's a tough ballpark, to be perfectly honest with you, to hit in terms of bats. Tough to have power in, but Aguilar stands out as probably my #1 guy in this stack. I'd play him as a one-off. You have VR. You have one of my favorites of the night. One of the easiest ways to differentiate your lineups is Corey Dickerson, a very, very solid, underrated left-handed at bat. And I mentioned, left on left does not matter for LeBlanc. He's still giving it up. The thing here with Corey Dickerson, he just struggles with injuries. I watched him play with the Pirates. I've watched him play with other teams, Tampa Bay. He's been a very solid pitcher. He's shown some power. I do like him as part of that stack. But you have a bunch of different ways to go. Anderson's hitting well. There's a bunch of different players for Miami that are absurdly cheap. So if you're going Chatwood, you can easily fit a Miami stack. You can also plug players in from Miami and be confident against this LeBlanc. He is not, as I mentioned, a good pitcher on the road traveling to Miami. I do, as crazy as it seems, like the Miami Marlins as a contrarian stack tonight. The only other teams I would mention are the Toronto Blue Jays pitching against Touki Toussaint for Atlanta in Atlanta. Guy doesn't have much going on. Toussaint, 582 xFIP to left-handers, 435 to right-handers. He limits home runs, I guess. Left-handers are 1.30 home run per 9, under 1. Actually, it's only 0.5 to right-handers. But the guy's not the greatest. If you're looking to differentiate a little bit, I have no issue taking some bats against Touki Toussaint for Atlanta, like I mentioned. He's a younger guy, but he got basically destroyed in his first start of the season against Tampa and did decently well against the New York Mets. So we'll see how he does tonight. Atlanta, a tough park to pitch in, especially for right-handers, giving up balls to left-handed at-bats. And then the other team I would mention here, you could go with Baltimore against Miami. Miami starting Yamamoto, who, again, just another pitcher. Tonight's pitching is just, it's pretty rough. But Yamamoto is just, there's not much to go off of him either. He only pitched about 70 or 80 innings in 2019, but gave up a lot to right-handers, 304 WOBA, 257 to left-handers. Keeps the ball, I guess, in the park, but he does pitch in Miami. 1.07 to right-handers, 1.47 home run per 9 to left-handers. Decent strikeout rate, but again, you could differentiate a little bit here, get your Baltimore bats. They're going to get more at bats typically because they're an away team. So again, another way to differentiate. But clearing all that out, some of the guys specifically I want to talk about, some one-off bats. I do like Aguilar. I like Freeman, probably is my #1 most expensive bat. I'll be playing a lot of him tonight. He's just Freddie Freeman. He is who he is. He's built for the Atlanta ballpark. He hits guys really well. Off to a slow start this season, but I really expect him, especially because I like the Atlanta Braves tonight, I expect him to take advantage of a rookie pitcher. I like Aguilar, regardless if you play Miami or not. He's a right-handed power bat playing against that Leblanc that just gives up everything to everyone. So I like Aguilar a lot tonight. If you're going third base, Moncada has to be started. Whether or not you stack Chicago White Sox or not, guy's having a great season, hit the top of that order. I love him against Lindblom, the guy that pitches from the KBO. So Moncada is probably one of my top favorite plays of the night. Some random plays here. Starling Marte, I think I'd like to say he's too cheap, but we're talking about a slate of 5 games. He is too cheap, even on a normal slate. Hitting third, middle of that order. Former Pirate here, guy that can steal bases, hit for average, and hit for power. Just an overall solid player playing against Leblanc, pitcher for Houston here. It's not an incredible matchup or anything, but again, you're talking about trying to differentiate lineups. I like Starling Marte. And so that's about it. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope these shorter videos are helpful. We're talking about a 5-game slate on FanDuel, 7 on DraftKings, so be careful. You don't have to go crazy tonight. I'm starting Chatwood, as I mentioned, in cash games, considering Gallon depending on Houston's lineup, Brad Keller to get a little bit crazy. Going to stack my Chicago White Sox, Atlanta Braves. We're going to get crazy with the Miami Marlins. That pretty much sums up the video. If you're new here or haven't done so already, please consider supporting No Huddle Fantasy Sports. All you have to do is make sure you are subscribed to this channel, like these videos. You can follow us on Facebook at No Huddle FS. I will be posting kind of my final thoughts later today over on Twitter. Much more simpler process. These are really early. We don't have lineups out, but once lineups come out and I start setting lineups, you'll know exactly where my mind is simply by looking at No Huddle FS on Twitter. Also, a couple links down below in the description. If you don't use an optimizer already, one of the best optimizers out there, Daily Fantasy Nerd. I use it every single day. It helps me put these videos together. It helps me obviously put together my final lineups and find value in things that are more difficult to find on any given slate. Links down below. It's not a very commonly talked about optimizer, but it is one of the single best optimizers, especially in baseball. I've been very successful with that optimizer. Check it down below. As I mentioned in other videos, Wednesdays, yesterday, Fridays, and over the weekend will be my main in-depth videos talking about slates, bigger slates. So please check those out. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and I will check you out in the next video.